Oh, I got some juicy news for you. Profit First app version 2.0 is here. With an enhanced user experience and video guidance throughout, you can now be even more confident in your Profit First implementation. Plus, listeners who work with a certified Profit First professional get extra benefits. Check it out now at www.profitfirstapp.com.
Today, right here, right now, this is the moment that you will finally say,
I'm growing my accounting practice, and you're going to discover exactly how right here, right now,
on the Grow My Accounting Practice podcast. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Ron Saharian, co-founder of Profit First Professionals.
And I am Liz Sporn, a guide here at Profit First Professionals.
And I'm Mike Michalowicz, the author of Profit First and the co-founder along with Ron of Profit First Professionals. And guess what? You're listening to the most important show on the planet. It's called GMAT, Grow My Accounting Practice. This is the show where we teach you to do exactly that. You're going to grow your business. Today, we have a great guest interview. Barrie Cohen is joining us, and we're going to be talking about what you can do to get better PR for your organization. Plus, Ron's got insider access, and I got a GMAT Now task for you that's going to boggle your mind.
Yeah, guys, and I want to shout out Miles Talent Hub for sponsoring this episode. Miles Talent Hub, if you're looking for full-time resources, give them a shout. Tell them Ron said hello. And also, listeners, don't forget to review and subscribe to Grow My Accounting Practice podcast so you never miss a wonderful episode ever in your life.
Boom.
Never miss it.
Nailed
Never.
it, right?
Nailed it. You did. It was perfect. And even though it's great because y'all can't hear it, but it's still clockwork. It's like, it's perfectly orchestrated, gentlemen. Well done.
We are
So,
pros.
You
guys will get a kick out of this. I missed the last week's episode recording because I was out filming. They needed me in a bee costume or beekeeper outfit for
Like Blind
this.
Melon?
No, not yeah. I said
No.
bee costumes. That would be Blind
Nice.
Melon. No, a beekeeper. with the smoker and everything.
Yeah.
There's this one particular B-roll shot they needed, so we had to rush the recording because they're working on the final episode. So it was just kind of funny.
Well, you're looking to get bees, aren't you? For real.
Yeah, you did
for
your
real.
good
You've been
last
talking
year.
about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know if I told you guys, I called a professional beekeeper for New Jersey. There's an association,
Yeah.
and
I remember.
okay, so my wife, she's like, "Are you sure you want to do this because it attracts bears?" I'm like, "That's like Winnie the Pooh mythology." So I call this bee professional, and they'll come in, they'll set it up, they train you, everything. And he goes, "What about the bears?" I'm talking to him, like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "It's like a magnet for bears, man." I'm like, "Oh, I'm out." So she was right.
But wait, don't you? Do you not have a lot of bears? Because we have so
We have
many
tons of
bears. in
bears.
our-
We have tons of bears.
Yeah.
And
Okay,
this will,
so they're already there. That's my point. Like,
Right,
we
but
have
this is a
so many
magnet,
bears
so
right now.
they'll-
He's going to have to design the DMZ around his honey hive, so nothing
Correct.
even comes close to it.
correct. So they will come up from Ron's property and they'll congregate on ours. So what I'm doing actually is looking into different pollinators, butterflies, and growing butterflies and releasing
So
them. So
cute.
My Mary, not mine, but Mary's cousin does that. She lives in Mountain Lakes on the lake, and she raises butterflies.
I would love a connection if
Okay.
you're up for it. I would
Yep.
love a connection because we just started
$1.
looking into it. Okay.
$1.
Well, we got to get into today's show, right?
We really do. We do.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay. Her name is Barrie Cohen. She's the founder and CEO of BCPR. Guess what the BC stands for?
Not Barbie. It's not
Nope.
Barbie.
No, it's Barrie Cohen. What's the PR stand for?
Public
Personal
relations?
relationships.
Yeah, or
Oh.
public relationships or public
Oh.
relations.
Dang.
So
Is there a
Liz, you
difference?
get a C minus. Ron, you get a B plus
Oh.
because you were following up with Liz and getting the answers correct. The BCPR is a public boutique relations firm known for its personalized strategic approach to elevating brand visibility across industries like healthcare, finance, and nonprofit. With nearly a decade of experience, Barrie helped clients secure major media coverage while also mentoring the next generation of PR professionals through speaking engagements throughout the country and Europe. With no further ado, Barrie, welcome to the show.
Oh my.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for having me. Super excited. I don't know how I can top all your energy though. I don't know.
You start beekeeping.
Yeah, yes. Do you have any bear stories or bee stories? Because that's all we talk about.
I
or
mean,
butterflies.
we're in Colorado, so bears basically live in my backyard. So
But listen,
I don't know.
You've worked at Jenks. We know you can turn it up. We know you can roll.
We already discovered there's a Jersey connection, everybody. We're very excited.
I'm
Jenkinson's
not
is
that
one of
cool anymore, though. I think I left that behind a little
Bring
bit.
it to Denver.
no. You never lose to Jersey.
No, you're cooler because you're actually in Denver, is really, or the suburbs of around Denver.
Well,
Yes,
let's talk
with
about
the
it.
bears and the bees.
Right.
Let's talk about something that's kind of a cool question. You worked actually with an MMA fighter,
Cool.
George St. Pierre, to help with his specific PR. What is,
Better not
and I
screw
wonder if
that
it translates to our,
He's a badass.
I wonder if it translates to our industry. How do you help someone in that industry get PR? Because that's a PR machine.
Yeah.
Everyone's fighting for it, as opposed to our
Yeah.
industry where most actually are not looking for it, but could use it.
Yeah. And so just to clarify, so he has a team. We were brought in to work on a project with another company that was using him as an ambassador. So
Okay.
they were an aquatic fitness company, and he was the ambassador for their products. I think having somebody like him probably helped in that scenario because they were a small company. And I think had they not had an ambassador or an influencer or somebody representing them, it probably would have been a lot harder. And so they do have athletes, but I think there's probably an extra level of stress. And that was right at the start of my career, like 3 months in, started a business, didn't know PR, didn't know how to run a business. And it was like, you're going to fly to Montreal and do this press conference with this super famous person who I had no idea. And like, we need all this press and all this stuff. And I was like, cool guys. Yeah, I can totally do that. And then literally got off the phone and Googled like, how in the world do I do?
I love it. Well played.
Okay.
That's how we do it. Right.
The secret is I was like, I knew a little bit, but not enough. And so
Enough to be dangerous and then right. And then you're right.
yeah. And then I was like, I can figure this out. I can't totally screw this up. And so it worked in my favor. But that was the first project I really worked on, like right out of the gate.
Amazing.
That's
That's awesome.
interesting. So translate that now for our listeners, the bookkeepers and accountants. That space isn't rich with PR, and so therefore I think it's ripe
Unless
for
something
opportunity.
bad happens.
Yes.
Touche. That's true. What can our community do to start getting that exposure?
Sure. I think really the big focus is storytelling, and it works across industries. And it's how do you really tell a story that resonates with your target audience or a certain demographic or the people that you want to reach the most. And so, depending on what area of finance you're in, if you work with a certain type of clientele, for example, if you are a financial advisor and work with women going for divorce, that's very niche market, but there's a lot of opportunity there. So it's really about defining your target audience, but looking within your own personal story at the unique things that differentiate you from other people and pulling those things out. And that's what a PR professional is really going to do, is going to look at those things, pull out those unique factors and create a narrative around it so that you can tell your story to the right audience. So anybody can utilize that. It's just meeting them where they're at. And so when we look at all these different factors like demographic and age and location, we want to make sure that we're getting in front of them in a way that makes the most sense. So is it podcasts? Is it newspapers or TV? Depending on where their listeners get their information.
That's
Okay.
great.
So PR is a whole thing. It's not just one medium. Had you know, when I think of PR, I'm thinking of a press release, quite honestly. You know, is there a whole chain of events that we're going to look to do, or is one press release good enough, or how would our audience even use PR?
So I would say don't do a press release. That's kind of
That's a great tip.
at all.
Oops. There goes my insider access.
I would say
That's awesome.
that's an antiquated tactic because they're just, you're putting that information out there, but no one's really seeing it. It's sort of a formality today. And we know like the amount of information we get on a daily basis is insane, right? And like, are you going to spend time to read an entire page of information? Probably not. So you really have such a short amount of space to get somebody's attention. And so through different mediums, like podcasts, like YouTube and video, like articles or blogs, you know, the way we put information out there is in short pitches. So we're sending information to producers and journalists in like 2 paragraphs at the most, sometimes 3 sentences, so that we can hopefully facilitate those opportunities to get our clients interviews. And so you really have to use different forms of media today, where press releases were pretty much the standard. I probably write 1 to 2 a year, like at all. And it's only for significant like business news or something that's more, I think, just a formality that you do part of a larger strategy.
That's great. I made started my own business in 2017, and I talk about this mistake that I made as the biggest financial mistake I ever made. I gave $15,000 to a PR person that we thought knew our stuff, and she went through $15,000 and we did nothing. What did we do wrong? And as our members and as, you know, people in general, they're creating, you know, piles of money for different specific things.
Yep.
One being PR. You mentioned, you know, getting them, pitching them for interviews and for podcasts and for all those things. What should I have done instead of said, here, Julie, here's $15,000 of our money that you're just going to throw on the floor? What did we do wrong?
Well, and I don't know if you did this or not, Liz, but I would say the biggest thing I see is that people get PR when they're not ready, as
Yeah.
saying is that they don't have their assets together. So it'll be like, we don't have a website, we don't have headshots, we don't have any messaging or branding together. And they're like, well, you go and do it. And like, we need all of those pieces in order to do the job well. And so I will usually say, like, if you don't have that basic foundation of marketing assets, like, you're not ready for us. And then I think it's not necessarily what you did wrong. I think it's a really important thing to know that this is a partnership. And sometimes PR professionals don't always see it that way. And that doesn't always happen. And so it's like, okay, we have a certain amount of, you know, length contract. Good luck. Go. We'll talk to you in 6 months. And for me, it's really about sitting down with our clients and collaborating. Like, I want you to have autonomy in how this looks like. Like, I'm going to guide you and tell you what I think you need. But if you're like, hell no, Mary, like, I don't want to be on TV, I'm not doing that. Great. I'm not going to push you. And honestly, it might not make sense for your audience either. And so I think it's really important to have a professional who's going to advocate for you and support you, but it's something you have to do together. And so I think if that person's also not willing and they're just like, I'm going to go about it. And it's also their responsibility to create a strategy. And like, just going in blind is also not beneficial. They're going to take your money. You're going to spend a lot of money. Nothing is going to happen. And so for me, it's like, we've got to sit down and create a plan. There's got to be a strategy. I'm not just going to tomorrow, you're going to hire us and then we're just going to send things out. There needs to be like organization and strategic decisions put in place in order to do it well.
But what I'm hearing is do the strategy that's natural to you. If you don't like TV, don't do TV. But are some media sources more effective than others? Do I have to overcome that resistance?
Yes. Yes. And that's what I'm here for too. And like, listen, I'm not going to out the gate be like, let's do the Today Show, because that might not work for you either. Right. And that's a big leap. Even your local TV might be scary. And so I think it really does come back to where are you going to get in front of the most people for what you want to say and for what your goals are. Right. Like, your PR goals might be different than somebody else. You might want leads. Other people just want to be a thought leader and be out in the public. Others want clients in the door. Right. So like, you know, referral sources, there's a lot of things that go into creating this plan and really understanding, like, what are your goals for this? Because we're not just doing it to do it. Like, yeah, it's fun to be on TV. It's fun to be in a newspaper or in a magazine, but like, what is the end goal and how are we utilizing it also when it's done? Yeah, we have to have a plan from the beginning to like, okay, now you have this content. Now what? Now what do we do? Because that's a whole nother conversation.
Devil's advocate, our listeners are going, oh my God, I never want to be in front of a camera. I am an accountant for a reason. And I don't have a story. I don't have a Phoenix story. I'm an accountant. I've got no differentiation than anybody else. I don't stand a chance. I'm just, how could you even work with somebody like me?
Yeah. I mean, it would really be a conversation where we would sit down and look at maybe the way in which your process works for your clients. Maybe that's really personal. We would even want to talk to maybe some of your clients as well, if you feel comfortable, to kind of hear from them. I think testimonials are the greatest thing. And so you don't have to be doing huge things, but maybe the way in which you do the work is really impactful for your community. And that's enough. And it's up to us to really convey that in a way that resonates with whoever we're sending it to. So this example, very different than finance, but I've seen it a lot working in healthcare and like working with plastic surgeons, right? You'll have the same 5 surgeons on a block doing the same procedure, right? They're all pretty much doing the same thing, but maybe the way in which you interact with your patients is really different than the other 4 guys. And that's what I want to focus on, because that's what's going to create the human connection. That's what it's really about. It's connecting you to your audience. And so you don't have to be changing the world, but you might really impact your community that they just don't know about.
Is this, you're talking about the doctors. I'm thinking, I flipped through some magazines. It's like top doctors, and it's clearly advertorial.
Yes.
How do you, me, the bookkeeper or
Yeah.
accountant, do PR in a way that's not advertorial?
Yes.
And to do PR, do you still have to play the advertorial game? Like, how does that
Right?
work?
Pay to play to get the award,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
exactly,
So it's a
exactly.
little bit of both. So
Okay.
traditionally, PR, we like to say, is earned media. You've earned it because you have a great story and you have somebody like me on your behalf sending it out to reporters or journalists or producers. And so they do a story because they like you and they like what you have to say.
Yeah.
And the PR person facilitates that. Paid media are those opportunities where you would pay to get an award or pay for a sponsored story or sponsored content in a magazine. The cost of those can be really high. I think you have to be really careful, and that's something
Mm,
that we would advise
Yeah.
on within the strategy. Awards are very tricky. A lot of them are paid. I usually stay away from those because to me, I think earning that is really more important and says a
Mm.
lot more about you than like anybody can pay for those things. But some of them just that's what it is. Top doctors, you pay for those. Okay, that's fine. But I think we have to be really selective. And I think having a mix is really good. But I think if you're going down the route of working with a PR professional, like see what they can do first before you get into that realm because it can be very costly. But I think
mm,
having a good balance is always good.
mm. I was reading a book once, Trust Me, I'm Lying by a guy named Ryan Holiday, and it's about marketing. And what he suggested was start with local media to go to the big media. Is there a right starting point? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I like kind of a two-pronged approach because my being from Jersey, like I don't like to wait. I'm gonna send to local media, but like,
Yeah.
hey, you might take some time and we might just hit gold and get lucky, and national media might want you before that. And I don't like to sit and wait. So I sort of like to do it at the same time, within reason. I think because today, you know, traditional media has changed so much. And I think there's other avenues than just local media where you can use video or other tools to get in front of those bigger opportunities. Where it used to be like, okay, you have to do your local news station and then maybe regional and then national. I think if you have footage where you're talking and people can connect with you and see who you are, whether it's YouTube or podcasts or other forms of media, I think that can still work for you. And so for me, I think it's really dependent on one, the client goals. Because if they're local and they have a brick and mortar and they want people physically in the space, then it's going to make more sense to really go local, right? Like, or
Hmm.
regional. National might not really make any sense if their clientele is in one specific geographic location. But if they're a
Mm,
company that can work with anybody, hey, if they can work globally, let's do that too. So I think it's also really looking at clientele that they serve.
mm.
And why, thinking about our specific audience here, why is it important that accounting and bookkeeping firms do PR? I think they all think they're too small or just,
Yeah,
they
too
just do what
smart.
they do, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Why do
I
they need to do it?
think anyone's too small. I think there comes a point in many businesses where the things that you've been doing, you sort of hit a plateau, right? Like grassroots marketing or your referral sources are drying up. And so I think PR gives you an opportunity to share your story to people that you might not necessarily get in front of and
Yeah.
drive more of those opportunities. Like if you're in a certain radius and every business knows you locally, well, it's going to take a lot of effort to like drive out farther than that. But what if we can get in front of them where you didn't have to, right? Or you have certain referral sources, but you've utilized all of them. Well, we can, utilize podcasts as referral sources in certain industries and drive them to you. And so I don't think you're too small. I mean, we work with small and medium sized businesses. I think you just have to be ready to want to put yourself out there. And also have the infrastructure in place that when you get new business, you can handle it. Because I think that's another thing that often happens is, when PR works, which it does, and it takes time, but when it does, it's a machine. And so if you don't have things in place to actually get those new clients or new business or referrals, then it's not helpful. But I think anybody of any size can use it because I think it's sort of, there's always those moments in every business where you're like, nothing's working anymore. What do I do?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
is this is all great stuff, and it sounds like a lot of elements of marketing. Is there a difference between PR and marketing?
Mm,
There is. I mean, there's a big overlap. I think,
Okay.
we often work with internal or external marketing teams that clients have. I would say that our biggest focus is storytelling in a way that's more about the people than selling that marketing can do. Right. And so I think, we're really focused on that long term and bigger picture of like, how do we get that person out there as an expert and have something to say, which you might not always get in certain marketing. Marketing is usually more on the advertising side. It's more, those quick engagements, where PR is going to be a little bit different. It gives you more of a platform for people to make that connection of who you are. But they work in tandem great. And I think they only really work best together.
How do you know if
sorry.
the PR is working? Meaning, maybe I get on a television program or I get that article in the newspaper, but maybe I don't get the sale immediately.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's not working, or is there other measurements I should be looking for?
Yeah, not necessarily. I think
Okay.
that's the hardest. That is the hardest thing in PR is ROI. And it's the question we get asked the most, because it is not as clear cut as marketing, right? Where you can say I've spent X amount of dollars and I'm seeing X amount of engagements or followers or, clicks. We don't have that ability always. Some of it is not entirely things that we can see. It's usually something that we have to work with the client to implement on their end. So if they have a way to capture traffic on their website, or they have a way on social media where they're getting analytics, or they're using Google Analytics, we're kind of working with their team to say, hey, we know within a 30-day of you having this interview, let's track all these analytics and we can sort of see, was there a spike? Did nothing happen? We'll also work with them. Like, are you getting calls? If so, like, we want that forwarded to us. Let us know. We'll implement things in place. Like, how did people hear about you? A lot of that stuff is though on the client, because we don't always have access to that. But what we can do is we do have programs. We can look at metrics and analytics and tracking for certain media opportunities. Podcasts, it's actually much easier than others because they're digital. When you have things like newspapers, physical
Yeah.
newspapers, it's like near impossible. But I have had people who stopped our clients on the street and said, I just read you in that magazine. And so some of it can often be anecdotal versus numbers. And so that can be hard. But I will say I have seen it work. And I think, again, you really have to decide what your goals are, because, yeah.
What if I don't want me, Ron
Yeah.
Saharian, to be the brand, the focal point? And is there a difference in PR for a company versus the individual in a company that's running the show?
Absolutely. I think it can totally work without you being the face. I think if you have other members on your team and one who wants to be the representative that speaks on the company's behalf, I think that's really great. We've had companies that we've worked with where the CEO wants to speak, but we've had other opportunities where he's like, I'd rather have another member of the team do this one. And so it's really raising awareness about the company as a whole versus just that one person. And then we have other people who it's a personal brand and their business and their name. And so they want to be the ones to
Right.
speak. And so I think it's really dependent on what you want, and do you want to be the spokesperson, or do you want somebody else to be that? And it works both ways.
Right. Right.
And you were mentioning storytelling, right? When we started out, it's all about storytelling. Building on Ron's question, could an organization somehow speak about the stories around that organization, how it served the client or something like that? Maybe it's the client story and the business's
Yes,
reference. Is that a technique?
absolutely. I would say that's probably the best way to go about it. I
Okay.
think having clients who can be profiled or speak on your behalf or with you, I think is really great. If you have a set of people that you helped, or you had a company who was in financial dire straits and you came in and you helped them, and that company is willing to share that, I think that's great. Anytime you have somebody who can support what you're saying, is critical, and journalists are looking for that, really depending on what the medium is. Like, they don't want just the talking head, like they want to hear from you, but if you have
Mm-hmm.
someone who can really speak to your character, I think that can go a long way.
Mm-hmm.
I would utilize them as a resource in a second.
Yeah, great. I've been
Oh, it's
collecting
amazing.
those recently, and I
Yes,
first of all,
collect them.
the stories are just so
Oh,
amazing, and they like just when you want to feel good in general, just talk to your clients. Is
yeah.
what I'm going to say. Even if you don't do anything with it,
Yes.
just ask them questions.
I
But I
agree.
do. There are so many platforms. So my question is, where? Now you've mentioned a
Mm.
bunch, and yes, of course, it depends on our goal. It depends on what
Mm,
we already have in place, but where do you find for financial firms or
mm,
businesses like
yeah.
the ones that are listening to this podcast? What are the best
Mhm.
platforms for them right now?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot in the podcast space. I know I've mentioned it a lot, but
Hmm.
we've seen in the last few years this shift from traditional media to digital media, just by nature. And so, we're able to get opportunities, I think, on podcasts that you just don't get with traditional media. We have so many more, right? So you have a database of so many more podcasts. You have so many more opportunities. And I think you can really, really target your niche that you can't with traditional media. So if you are like, I do bookkeeping for I don't know, automotive companies. Like that is what I do. Like there are automotive podcasts. Like there is literally a podcast, as you guys know, for everything. And so I think you have a real opportunity to get in front of people when you normally wouldn't. And unlike other forms of media, you have content that lives forever. So oftentimes when we work with podcasts, they'll give us like MP3 or MP4 files that we can then use, our clients can clip and use forever, and it exists forever.
Right.
Where if you do an article, sometimes it's behind a paywall. And so you have to pay to access it. Right. And not everybody wants to do that. There's still benefit, but I think you just have so many more positives of utilizing podcasts. And then on the ROI side, we can track. We use a database where we can look at, you know, how many people have listened to your episode, who the demographic is. Like we can really pinpoint who the right people are for you. And so I think it's an area that's going to continue to grow, and we've just seen a lot of success in it. And so I think that would be my first avenue to go down.
Cool.
Barrie, I hate to say it's, we're at time. The bell is ringing.
We
So,
could probably talk for like 2
yeah.
hours.
No, I know. So we got to rock and roll. But before we let you go, where can our listeners go to learn more about you, get hold of you, that type of stuff?
Yeah, so they can find us on bcpublicrelations.com. They can also reach out to me directly, barrie@barriecohen.com, or find me on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Barrie, thanks
Okay.
for joining us.
One
Thank
final
you.
question. One final. Taylor ham or pork roll?
Pork roll.
No.
No, the show's canceled. Get out, Barrie. Get out.
You're below the Driscoll Bridge. I
was
get
gonna say
it.
she's in Monmouth County.
Yeah, I know.
Freaking Monmouth
Yeah,
County.
It's
my
been
God.
so long, but I also have Philly roots, so I'm also a cheesesteak.
There you
girl.
go.
I know.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
I know.
Wow.
Got it.
Barrie,
All right.
even irrespective of that horrible response, thank you for being on the show. You're amazing.
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
All right, we're going to recap what we learned in just a second. We also have an insider access, and I have a GMAP Now task that I promise will blow your mind. Do we want to do trippy questions first? You got something?
No,
No trippy questions.
We're doing
what you
takeaways.
learned first.
No, I know that's what you like, Ron, but
Now you're doing rage bait, dude.
Yeah.
Now
no,
you're
no,
just
it's
throwing
called a
rage bait
cliffhanger.
out there.
It's called a cliffhanger. It's
Hanger.
cliffhanger.
Hanger. I do have a trippy question,
Okay.
but I'll let you two fight it out. What are we doing?
Trippy question.
Okay, fine. If you could be brilliant in one subject, what would it be?
Cash flow.
Oh, that's a good
No, no, we already are. Sorry, that was a joke answer.
I would be brilliant in another language, probably like
Mm.
Spanish or something like that, and the culture, the whole thing. I think
Yeah.
Spanish is the most important language in the country right now.
I would like to be like super, super great at math.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of those people
Yeah.
that just add stuff up, like, like can really, really do math really, really well.
Liz, how about you?
People that add stuff up. It's like
Yeah, that's
hilarious.
advanced math.
Mine, well, not a shocker. It would be
People who can
music.
spell.
It would be music, like full. Like I want to play a million
that's
instruments. I would just like. I would love to be able to play anything.
That's cool.
All the time, every time.
That's cool.
I want to
Um,
revise mine.
No,
Mike.
no.
Go.
Math. Adding things up is yours.
Adding things up in math. All right, now we can recap what we learned. And hopefully our
my
listeners,
goodness.
you did the same. I want to invite you, leave your comments and ratings of the podcast show with what you learned from Barrie today too in the comments. We'd appreciate
In the
that.
comments. Yes,
All right,
please.
Ron, you go first, brother. What do you got?
Yeah. So one of the things is before you even venture into this stuff, make sure you have your ducks in a row. Just don't
Yeah,
go
smart.
ahead and say, "Hey, I need PR." Make sure you have your assets ready to go. Make sure you're working with the right type of PR person that's putting you on the right space in the right medium.
Yeah, not her words, but like, why the hell are you doing this in the first place? What are your goals? I love that, Ron.
Yeah.
What did you get, Liz?
The idea behind it is storytelling and human connection. And I know that's true. I know why people love this show, why people love being members with us is the human connection, and the social posts that we have that do the best are the ones that tell the stories. So
My two
There you go.
takeaways were when Ron's like, "How about a press release?" And before he even finishes that thing, she's like, "Don't do a press release." I thought that was interesting because I was thinking,
welcome to
that's a good idea.
1987, Ron.
I know. I thought 1987 was still relevant, so I was into it. And then I loved that I never heard this before, that PR is earned media. I like that. I like that framing,
Too.
and
Me
it really
too.
helps me differentiate from marketing. Again, listeners, we want to know your takeaways, so share them with us when you do rate and review the show. All right, Ron, you got that crazy weapon of yours. I don't know if you have it at hand, but it's a lightsaber. I
There
hear
it
it.
is.
There,
I
see
hear it. You do hear it. Yeah.
I do hear
I
it.
hear it
see
now. Now I
So
can hear it.
weird.
What's your insider access tip?
Well, the real inside action tip is admit when you make mistakes. So yeah, we just did a couple of press releases literally this week, right? And so shit, what am I gonna do? What I
That's
learned
awesome.
is that listen, sometimes you got to sometimes you make mistakes, admit your mistakes, move on. It is what it is.
Yep.
So
Yep.
now I'm going to follow up and maybe I can get quoted in those magazines. Maybe they
There
can
you
do
go.
something short and sweet in those magazines because you're right. No one's reading that press release.
Yeah,
No.
I
No.
didn't go to bcpr.com for that. We went to bcpr.org. We went to the wrong website. And
they're like, sure, we exclusively do press releases.
BCPR is
Exclusive.
because press releases work.
I got it. But it was accepted. They are going to publish it.
Oh, well,
Where?
of course. And they take our money too, and we get zero. So Barrie
Was her name
pulls a new
Julie?
way.
Was her name Julie? Is that who said yes?
Yeah, it was Julie.
Julie took our money.
It was
Yeah,
Barbie.
Julie took money fast.
It's
That's a
not
great
Barbie.
tip, Ron. Thank you for that. I got one more tip. We call it the GMAT Now test. One task you see results. Yes, people are super uncomfortable in front of the camera. There's a technique called the C2C. It's a way to get comfortable in front of the camera. And this is how it works. The first C stands for consult to camera. And what you do is call an existing client of yours, just like a Zoom meeting or some other, Google Meet. Ask them permission to record it, and then interview them, ask them the challenges they're facing, and give them answers. Now take clips of that, and guess what? You have an amazing video with their permission that you can broadcast out there. You get comfortable with the camera because you're already doing it. This way, what's different is instead of having a scripted presentation, you're just doing consulting, C2C.
I love that.
I gave you a bomb on that one, Mike.
Yeah,
You
that's a great one.
I bombed you on
I
that one.
operate that way much better as well, too. All right, guys. Awesome. Thank you, Barrie. Thank you, listeners. Don't forget to review and subscribe to Grow My Accounting Practice podcast so you never miss an episode. But there's another thing that's so important that our listeners must do. And what's that, Liz?
Oh, you know what they should do? They should head over to profitfirstprofessionals.com. Check out our beautiful website. Maybe read some blogs, things like that. But
Check
really
out our
what they
press
should do,
release.
They should set up a call with us. They should set up a call. They should do not a press release. They should check up and do a discovery call. Meet with Ron. Meet with me. Let's talk about what a professional membership looks like with us and increase your profitability and have a lot of fun.
Yeah, see if we can help you
do.
achieve your desired future because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, buddy.
Thanks,
All right,
everyone.
friends.
See you guys.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.